It's the Winter Garden Tips and Tour, and it's Alexandra here from the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel and blog. In winter we can be pretty relaxed about our gardens, maybe even just not take much notice of them for a bit, but there are one or two things that really do make a difference to your summer garden, and pruning trees and shrubs is one of those. Obviously different trees and shrubs may have different pruning times and some different pruning patterns, but if you know the general principles of pruning, you can apply these to really most plants and you can't go far wrong. So I'll go into those in a minute, but firstly let me show you around the Middlesized Garden to see what's looking good in winter. The garden is a walled town garden and it's about 100 feet long and 80 feet wide at its widest, but it's an L shape, so it's 40 feet wide nearer the door. And while we roughly equate to a USDA gardening zone of 9, because our winters are very mild, very rarely go below -6 Celsius, 21 Fahrenheit, our summers are nowhere near as hot as a zone 9 would be, with the exception of last summer, of course. This winter started off really mild but very wet, and then just before Christmas we had a real freeze. In terms of what's looking good in the winter garden at the moment, it's the topiary, the bark of the trees, particularly the silver birch. It's the sundial, the statue, the benches, and the evergreen foliage of some of the conifer trees and also the mini Pinus mugo in pots. My main job this winter has been to clear the main border. You come out of our back door and there's a terrace, and then you go up some steps to what we call the parterre, which is quite a formal part of the garden, and then on the right there's a big border where I put most of my colour, and this means that we can see it all times of the year from the kitchen window. But for the past few years I've just simply been stuffing in a plant here and there, and the border had got incoherent, parts of it had got overgrown, some plants were taking over and others were not surviving. So this is the year I'm going to change it completely, and I will keep you up to date with that with various videos throughout the year, so if you want to see how it changes then tap subscribe. But the first step, which is now completed, is to clear this border. And you wouldn't believe how hard it is to completely clear a border. Psychologically, it's quite difficult because you think, well, I don't want to waste that plant. It looks fine. It's not really doing anything there. And physically, of course, some of the plants were so established that I had no hope of digging them out myself. I do have 4 hours a week help in the garden, and so Felix has cleared most of this border. My garden designer friends, however, have made it clear that it is really important to clear it. And the reason for that is that if you start stuffing plants around quite a lot of established plants in the border, you're not really revamping the border, you're still just working around what you did have. You can store plants in pots, which is what we've done. And there are a few plants I want to keep, which are some well-established roses and obviously the trees. So if you want to keep a few in, such as roses, which take a while to establish, then you can, but on the whole it needs to be absolutely clear. And then when the border was absolutely clear, I looked at it and realised that there was one plant left. Why had I not cleared it, or not asked Felix to clear it? And I thought I'd throw this open to you, is I think perhaps we all have a plant in our garden that is so sort of insignificant and really does so little that we simply forget about it. We actually don't see it any longer. This particular plant is a cornus and it should have brightly coloured stems, but it's completely enveloped in the next door tree's leaves during the summer, so it doesn't get much sunlight. And I can see from its tangled stems that I've even forgotten to prune it over the years. But I think perhaps it's worth saying that winter could be a good time to think about your garden and wonder if there are any plants that have just been there and are doing nothing and you no longer see them. So pruning, there are basically 2 approaches to pruning. And one is when you cut off all round the plant. And this stimulates growth because if you cut branches, it stimulates growth. So if you want your bushes to be bushy and your hedges to be thick and your topiary to be really thick and dense, then you cut all round. However, if you want to accentuate the natural shape of the plant or the tree, then you need to take out individual branches, either from the main trunk, from the ground, or from a bigger branch it's attached to. And when you take them out, you need to take them out so there is a little mound left on the original stem. And the reason for that is that there are healing elements in that mound, so the cut will heal up nicely. However, if you cut across a branch, then you're going to stimulate the growth, and what you'll get is lots of shoots and probably quite an ugly shape of plant. So before pruning anything, even if you don't know what you're pruning or how you're supposed to prune it, just take a look at it and think, do I want to make it bushier and more dense, in which case I clip all round it, or do I want to accentuate the natural shape, make the shape more beautiful, perhaps make everything a little bit lighter, in which case you need to take out individual branches. And this business of pruning, stimulating growth, is worth remembering if it comes to winter damage of shrubs and plants. Both extreme weather conditions, both in winter, like freezing cold weather, and summer, really hot, dry weather, can push a plant into dormancy if it's more extreme than that plant is really geared for. And what a lot of us saw this summer was plants apparently dying in our borders. In winter too, if we have a bout of quite mild weather and things start to spring out and you can see a little bit of new growth, and then suddenly there's another really cold spell, that new growth gets killed off. But I've been told by several head gardeners that the important thing to do is not to cut that dead growth away, but to leave it until the normal time for pruning or trimming that plant. And the reason for that is that if the plant isn't dead, if it is actually dormant, then what you're doing is you're stimulating the growth by doing that pruning and cutting away. And you're actually putting the plant under huge pressure, and it may be that that kills it rather than the extreme weather. So I know it's horrible having sort of dead and damaged leaves in the garden, and I don't like it any more than you do. But I think if you want to keep the plant, it is worth just living with it for a while. When it comes to pruning flowering shrubs like hydrangeas, many people say you shouldn't prune your hydrangeas until spring. But the late, great Christopher Lloyd, the famous horticulturalist who owned Great Dixter, used to say that the best time to prune a plant was when it ought to be pruned, and the second best time is when it's convenient for you. And I do know quite a lot of people who prune their hydrangeas earlier because they know that they've got so much work to do in spring. So I may very well go for a winter pruning of these hydrangeas. The dried flower heads do protect the buds below from frost up to a point, and possibly there may be some damage if we get another really cold spell, but we can always cut them down again to the buds below that. I've got a video on hydrangea pruning that I'll put in the description below that explains more about that, but the basic principles apply. Take out any diseased, dead or crossing wood, and then make sure that you cut out whole stems or branches right from where they originate. And while we're talking about trees, you'll often see the advice to check tree ties and stakes in the winter. Of course, you can check tree ties and stakes at any time, but it's quite a good idea to have a sort of once a yearly check, because this is the sort of thing you can forget and years can go by. And I interviewed the award-winning garden designer Jamie Butterworth on how to plant a tree, and I will put that video in the description below as well. And he said that actually trees should really only be supported and tied for about a year or 18 months, and that you really should actually take the ties off certainly after 2 years. And I've certainly had trees in my garden where the ties have been left on for 5 or 6 years, and that's not really good for the tree. In our front garden, for the past few years, we've been trying to have, instead of our 2 patches of lawn, we've been trying to create a mini meadow. And many of you have asked, what's the progress on that? And the progress on that is a bit variable. And I have to confess, I've really just been dithering about it. We grew the lawn long about 2 years ago, and we have planted some bulbs in there. Wildflowers haven't really grown up. It doesn't really look like the meadow lawns that you see in the show gardens and in magazines, but then perhaps that's expected. It may be a little bit shady for that sort of thing, but it does have some quite pretty bulbs in spring. So I'm in 2 minds as to whether to keep going with it, but what I'm going to do is to leave it for this spring, see what bulbs have spread and come up, and then about 6 weeks after the last flowers have faded, we may well cut it down and have it as a shorter standard lawn, although we probably won't mow it more often than about once every 2 or 3 weeks. But certainly the wildlife are enjoying it. And I think what this shows is, you can change your mind. It doesn't really matter if something doesn't work out. So if you're thinking of giving a patch of mini meadow a try, just do it. In the end, you may decide it's not right for you, but at least you'll have found out, and it doesn't seem to damage the lawn. Of course, winter is the time for dreaming and planning. And so to give you inspiration for your projects next year, I've put together the Garden Design Ideas playlist. So do just have a little relax and watch that. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.